Hola amigos, hoy quiero usar el verbo ir para discutir un poquito más sobre el transporte. I like to use the verb to go to talk to you guys a little bit more about transportation. So I've started out here in one of my PowerPoint type lessons to help us practice some vocab for transportation. It's going to be a little helpful in this section, and then I'm going to go into one of my grammar lessons to kind of show you how we can combine this vocab we're going to learn with the verb ir, one of our irregular verbs, if you haven't seen that video, to really create some creative sentences. And we're going to, hopefully, if the video is not too long, move beyond just talking about transportation and really exercise some of the power we have with the verb ir. So let's go ahead and learn some of these verbs. There'll be learn some of these words. There'll be one or two verbs in here that we won't really use in the writing, but since you guys are becoming better with using verbs, hopefully you can apply them to your learning. So let's start out with the word CAMINAR, one of the original forms of transportation. And CAMINAR, you can see, is an AR verb. So the conjugate is yo camino, tú caminas, él camina, nosotros caminamos, ellos caminan. Excuse me. But this is not really what we're trying to do, but if you're good with AR verbs from the things we've learned in the past, this is a helpful verb too. The next one's correr. We haven't talked a lot about ER verbs, but it conjugates as yo corro, tú corres, él corre, nosotros corremos, y ellos corren. And correr, you can see, is to run. Again, we're not going to use either of these two in our practice, but you can add them into your arsenal of words that you've learned so far. So the first type of transportation that we will need is una bicicleta, bicicleta. If you're in my class, we learned this word in chapter 2 and many times in the past before you all got to these higher levels of Spanish. And in order to say bike, we just say un bici. I remember there was a company in Valencia called Valen Bici, and you could rent bikes. And now it's kind of taken over the U.S. by storm since I've lived there. The next one is un moto. Un moto. Moto is short for motocicleta. I've seen the word moto also used not just for motorcycles, but for moped, go-kart, four-wheeler, dirt bike. All of those things can be called un moto, and a motocicleta is specifically a motorcycle. We have the word carro, carro. Some people say coche or auto. And camión, camión is a truck. A camioneta is more like a pickup truck. Camión can be used interchangeably, but when I think camión, I think big truck. And when I think camioneta, I think more of a retail consumer truck. So just to practice some of the ones we've tried so far, which one of these tres camina? ¿Quién camina aquí? Si ellos están caminando o ellos caminan. Y corre, corre, ¿quién corre? Si él corre. Camioneta, camioneta. Aquí está la camioneta. Una bicicleta, bicicleta. Sí, está aquí, un bici. El moto está por el centro. Y un carro, un auto o la coche. Está aquí, es la azul. So let's learn a few more words that will really help us out with this grammar section. Autobús. Autobús is our word for bus. Sometimes you'll hear bus escolar for a school bus, and guagua in some of the parts of Latin America we use for the word bus as well. Un tren is a train, y un metro, if you're from the DMV or the DC, Maryland area, metro is the word for the subway. So tren means train, and metro is the word for subway. Avión. Avión is our word for plane. A lot of my kids know this since they were really, really little. And an avioneta would be more like a jet. So you saw camión was a truck, and camioneta was our smaller pickup truck. Avión is a plane, and avioneta is a jet. Un barco is a good word for boat. We also have bote, yancha, lancha, lots of other different types of boats, but you can get away with saying barco for mostly any above water vessel. Una patineta or monopatín is a skateboard. Patines are skates, and a patinete is a scooter. If you look at these, you'll see that there's the word patinar, patinar. That is the verb to skate. All right, which of the three is a tren? Un tren. Si el tren de animales está aquí. Un barco, un barco. Sí, aquí está el barco, está sobre el agua. Un avión va arriba, encima de la cabeza. Aquí está el avión. Y la patineta o monopatín, tiene una chiquita aquí por encima. Y that's our skateboard. El autobús, el guagua, el bus de conejo. Yeah, we have this bunny bus I put for one of my students a long time ago who really liked bunnies at the time. Y los patines from patinar are our skates. Very good. So what we're going to do, you guys, is we're going to move over to one of my grammar documents. I'm going to first quickly re-explain how we conjugate ir, and I'm going to show you a few different ways that we can use this to get creative with this vocab. All right, so what I have here is a document. I've called it ir for more than to go, but this word ir, we said, is irregular. It's going to conjugate a lot more different than what we'd expect, but we do this because it's super useful. So hopefully this is an example of how useful this word is, and you guys will see how you really can't get through a day or, you know, the process of speaking Spanish without using this verb ir, to go, in many of its forms, or in its many forms. So we're going to try and say things like he goes to school, we do not go to science class, I go to Spanish. Those are simple ways that we use the word to go. And when we look at these two here, I'm going to show you how, you know, in English sometimes I may say something like, instead of the dog doesn't belong in the house, that the dog doesn't go in the house. And this is also a way to say belong, and you can see our word to go being used as belong as well. The same thing with the food belongs in the kitchen. We're going to try and say the food goes in the kitchen. You're answering the question, well, where does this food go? It goes in the kitchen, and we're talking about where it belongs and not how it travels. All right, and then in the second part, we're going to talk about how we can use this and expand it to some other transportation and not just say go. So when you look at the word ir, we have yo voy, tú vas, él, ella y usted va, nosotros vamos, vosotros vais con un acento en la A, y ellos, ellas y ustedes, ellos van. So what we're going to do is apply this conjugation down here on the first, some really simple sentences. So if I'm trying to say he goes to school, I need to choose the verb that matches he. That one is él con el tilde en el A. And that's what say él, accent on the E, va a escuela. And this here is not to or, it is to or at. It is showing a destination, and when we're using irregular verbs, we want to always have an to connect the verb to the destination. All right, we do not go to science class on Friday. This would be nosotros. See that I'm choosing nosotros here, and I could start it as just vamos. No vamos a la clase de ciencias los viernes. And so I chose the way of on Friday, not talking about specifically Friday coming up, but every Friday. No science class on Friday. I go to Spanish class and they go to French class. So here we'll see the same verb, ir, but one will be conjugated for I, the other will be conjugated for they. So this one says, yo voy a la clase de español y ellos van a la clase de francés. All right, and I'll make these a little smaller so that it'll all fit on one line for you. The dog doesn't belong in the house. We're going to try and say the dog doesn't go in the house, which would say el perro no va en la casa. So here you didn't need to learn a new way, a new verb for to belong, although you could. You can use this word va that we're already practicing to say more, and this is how you grow your Spanish. All right, the food belongs in the kitchen would say la comida va en la cocina. All right. So I think that this video may get split in half here, but if I'm able to get this done in just a few minutes, I'll post this as one of my longer videos here. So if you would like to learn about the transportation, you're going to go to minute number 9:39. So we have some words on our vocab sheet, and one is ir a pie. This says to go at foot, or to go to foot. If we translated it literally, to go destination foot. This is how we say to go on foot or to go by foot in Spanish. So I could say ir a pie, to go on foot. Y ir a mano would be to walk on my hands. Does that make sense? But when we're transporting, from not PA, but to, some sort of piece of transportation, like el autobús, the bus, then what we say is ir in, to go on. And then in this blank, you can see I've added autobús. So what are some other things we could add here instead of autobús? I could say ir en tren, to go on train, ir en avión, to go on plane, ir en barco, to go on boat, ir en patineta, to go on your skateboard, ir en caballo, to go on horse. Does this make sense? So you can use this to say lots of different forms of transportation, and all you have to do is switch ir for whoever it is that's going on this transportation. So let's see some examples of that. They fly to the beach, but I go by car. So we don't need the word volar to fly. Although you could use it here, you could say they go by plane to the beach. So this would say ellos van, this is they go, en avión, on plane, to, or destination, a la playa. Yo, we're going to say pero, but yo, voy en carro, coche o auto. So we have they go on plane to the beach, but I go in car, or go by car. I need to accent on this O. All right, we go on train a lot in Europe. So obviously to conduct a train, to ride a train, those are things you could use here if you were the driver or you're just actually riding on it. But we're going to say go on train, so you don't need a new word. And this will say nosotros vamos en tren mucho en Europa is how we say Europe. Our last one is they don't walk to school because the school is far away. So this is practicing our por qué from last video, where we're going to say ellos no van a pie a escuela porque la escuela está muy lejos. I'm going to move these all down to this page so we can see them all together. All right, our last one, I ride a bike a lot in Valencia, as I mentioned, the bici, lo siento. We're going to say yo voy en bici, bicycle, bicicleta, mucho en Valencia. And I'm talking about Valencia, España, not Valencia, Florida. All right, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you're able to practice in your sentence writing for this chapter, really expanding your what you're able to say and using more verbs than what we've typically done in the past. Adios, have a good day.